Please welcome our next speaker, Zoe Leichty and Joel Leichty, a Power Practice Manager. Today they will be presenting From Zero to Minimally Competent Power BI Story. Please stick around after their session for a live Q&A.
In a world where data comes from all over, one woman learns a new kind of technology. With the incredible power of DAX formulas and the manipulations of Power Query.
Zoom and enhance.
But will it refresh before time runs out? Time is going by so quickly. They were running out of time. Oh, come on! DynamicsCon Cinema presents the story of a business analyst.
But I do have a very particular set of skills. Skills that I acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare to bad data.
She's facing a frightening dilemma.
Hey Dave, what are you doing?
Can she hack into the server in...
I'm in. Password is, I am not a cat.
Query Minds. Starring Zoe Leichty, and also starring Power BI as herself. Coming April 1st to a low-budget theater near you.
Welcome to DynamicsCon Movie Talk. We're so happy to have Zoe Leichty with us today. I'm your host, Joel Leichty. And of course, Zoe is the star of the critically acclaimed movie, Query Minds. Zoe, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's such an honor. I've been waiting for this for so long. And
I know.
It's, just an amazing movie. I don't know how you did it, but it's just incredible. What made you decide to sign on to do Query Minds?
Well, I was looking for a new adventure. Also trying to get my dog into some acting roles. So this kind of enabled both of us to grow in our personal and professional development.
Yeah. Tyler just crushed it, and especially in the car chase sequence. I don't want to give it all away, but that was incredible.
Right. Yeah, he honestly didn't take much training for that either. So I mean, it's just phenomenal.
That's amazing. I did hear some rumors that your compensation for Query Minds was in the 3-digit range. Do you feel like you did it all for the money, or, was it more about the experience?
Well, again, without giving too much away, I feel I really just wanted some, personal enrichment, and it doesn't help or hurt, I suppose, to get a little coin on the way, if you know what I'm saying. But I think it was more for the experience, and kind of getting Tyler and I, and and our names out into the world. So it was for both, I suppose.
Totally makes sense. Have you been surprised to the fan reaction to the movie? Because right now I'm looking at the fan chat over to the right-hand side, and it is just blowing up.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea people were going to be so excited about Query Minds, but I'm not mad. So, I think it's great. If people really want to get into this stuff, I mean, I'm happy that people have, found us and are excited to watch the film.
How did you prepare for your role in Query Minds?
I think, I would say I probably was a film study. So I, watched a lot of other actresses in these kinds of roles and kind of wanted to embody them in this. And so I guess I just watched a lot of movies.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about something I had heard where you learned Power BI from scratch just to do this role. How much work went into just learning that software so that you could be an expert at it to play the part convincingly?
I would say 30 minutes.
30 minutes. I was under the impression that it was several months that you've been working on that project, but that's interesting. What do you think the most challenging part of that 30 minutes of learning was?
Probably not having access to my phone during that time, because my trainers were saying that I needed to just focus on learning this program. So I had to put my phone down, which means I couldn't, TikTok and all that fun stuff. But other than that, though, it was pretty easy, except the stunts. Those were a little challenging.
Yeah, that was my understanding, that you did all your own stunts and actually had to have corrective knee surgery after the film to repair some of the damage. I did.
Yeah, see my crutches in the background. Yeah, I did. It was a coding injury, actually. So, you should see the data after I was with it, done through it. So, I had to do what I had to do.
Typing is a dangerous game, I'll tell you.
It really is.
Yeah. I've got the scars to prove it.
So do I now.
Do you, was it difficult getting into such a technical character? I understand that you can type at about 200 words per minute.
I can. But, I think given that I can type so many words per minute, it just really came kind of naturally. So using those skills, I just carried it over to this role, and I think it worked out pretty well.
Your co-star, of course, was Ryan Reynolds, who has been panned by critics, and everyone saying that you had to carry the movie beside him. Any thoughts on his role and what you had to do to really make this happen?
I think some people, when they find their niche of work they like doing, that perhaps they should just stick with it. So I think Deadpool is great, and maybe we should just stick with that for him. But
stick to the comedy,
great guy,
the technical stuff. Yeah.
Yes, let's leave that to the professionals. I mean, really.
Yeah. I understand that some other BI tools were considered for this movie. Click, Tableau.
No comment. Next question.
Okay. Well, rumors are surrounding Tyler's relationship with another dog on set. Would you like to comment on those?
I am very supportive of all of his endeavors. Obviously, I can't disclose whether or not there is or is not another human in his life or a dog, but when he's ready to share his relationship with said or unsaid dog, if there is one, then he will do that when he's comfortable, if there is anything to be comfortable with.
Got it. Of course, before Query Minds, you've had a successful series of movies, the trilogy about Excel. Do you think you'll stick in the Power BI genre, or are you thinking about going back to some of your Excel roots?
I think both great, kind of aspects. I think now that I've, opened my world up to Power BI, I think that it would be good to kind of dive in more to the relationship between both of them. And so maybe we could I've been talking to some of my producers about maybe a crossover to kind of, go from there and kind of build this into something a little bit bigger and stronger. But who knows what 2021, 2022, 23, who knows what all of that has in store for us.
Yeah, I'm just glancing over at the chat again. It is blowing up in support of a Power BI Excel crossover movie.
Yay!
So
yes, I see that. Thank you.
So do you think there will be a sequel to Query Minds, and when might we expect it?
Well, I think we kind of like this April 1st rollout date. So I'm not necessarily going to say a year or anything, but if the chat is any indication of, fan support for this kind of ongoing work, then I don't know what is, but we'll kind of see how, when it's released, we'll see how people react. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a sequel or, another trilogy or whatever. But definitely not sure about the year, but I think we'll stick with this April 1st. It's just something about that day. It's just very, people just really enjoy wanting to go to the movies on that day. So yeah, we'll see.
Spring movies, everybody's ready for after a long past year. Zoe, thank you so much for being here today to talk about the film and to talk about your experience with Power BI and Excel. It was an honor again to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I see you, and yeah, it was great to catch up. And thank you for having me.
Thanks. Coming up next, Zoe goes deep dive into some of her learnings with Power BI. We'll be right back after the break.
Bye. Thank you so much, Joel and Zoe, for that thrilling interview. Can't wait to see that when that comes out. Hi, everybody. I am Zoe, and thank you so much to DynamicsCon for having us. I look forward to kind of sharing our journey and chatting with you guys after we get done talking. So today I'm going to be sharing my journey to minimal competency in when it comes to Power BI. So we're going to kind of run down a couple things about my journey and learning the software and how it went for me. So the couple talking points that I'm going to run through today are mainly how did I get here? Because I'm not a tech person. Imagine that. What did I learn? So kind of a rundown of what I found easy, what I found, what were some hurdles that Joel and I had to kind of work through. And now that I have these skills, what am I going to do next with them? So those are just a couple things that I'm going to talk about today. So the first one that I am going to kind of address is how did I get here, or why am I here? Which is a great question. So I am a mental health therapist. So I do individual therapy with inmates at a correctional facility. So I don't do code. I don't, build websites. I'm not a tech consultant. I don't necessarily come from that background, but I have found opportunities in my job where I really think that we could do things a little more efficiently, or cut some of the middleman out, and kind of grow things that I can do within my department. And so finding those kind of glitches in our system when it comes to data, collecting and mining and all that fun stuff, it triggers my inner nerd, which I think we all have inside of us. I really have always enjoyed working in Excel and kind of playing around with formulas and different formatting and stuff. And I always enjoy learning and developing my talent so that I can be a well-rounded individual when it comes to the job market or skills or, things like that. So that combination, plus knowing somebody who does tech, we kind of put our brains together and we went on this wonderful adventure and definitely a journey together. So that's why I'm here. And so next, how did it go? Well, if you can't tell by all the snippets of my wonderful face throughout this process, it was a journey for me. But I had so much fun, and I really appreciate a lot of factors about this program. Basically, what we did is Joel kind of, how do I say this? Threw me in with the sharks and just said, hey, here's a blank screen. Why don't you just play around with it? So I had lots of confused, exasperated faces, as you can see. But in doing so, it was kind of strengthening to see what I could navigate and figure out on my own, having no background or experience with this program. So one of the things that I found really helpful was that especially when it came to the relationships that it would automatically identify, that was super helpful because then I didn't have to kind of go through and identify those on my own. I also really appreciated how you could kind of change and manipulate the data, manipulate in a positive way, so that what you were seeing in your visualizations was really clean and clear cut. And I definitely think that it's really helpful when you're using this information and this data when you're sharing it with stakeholders, like maybe other therapists. Like I could take some of the data of like the progress that we've done with our clients, put it in a visualization, say, hey, look at all this progress we've done. And that is much easier to retain for some people than just reading through the data. So I think that's really helpful. One of the downsides, or not a downside, but hurdles that we had to overcome was that I am a Mac user. And so Power BI doesn't have it on the iOS platform yet. So we had to kind of develop some workarounds for that. Now it's able to be done. So that was nice. But that definitely took us a little bit in our initial launch to kind of get this going. The other thing, I know I mentioned a positive side being able to manipulate the data, but we did have some issues as far as the data being in the right format. So I know it can come from Excel and a CSV file, whatever, but it has to match across. Like if you wanted to dump 2 data sets in and have them cross-reference, it had to be the same columns and stuff. So we had to work a little bit because the information that I was curious about had to be created almost, but using the original data. So I'm still a little confused on it, as you can tell, but it just required him to actually, help me with some stuff. So, but again, it was another area of growth for me, and I really appreciated that. The final thing that I'll say is it definitely isn't, you have to have some knowledge because I am an Excel user, so I had some familiarity with the programs, but there were other items that I had no clue, even some of the visualizations. So I definitely had to utilize the help program or the help bar that they have, which is super helpful, or the little info icons. So even having those, however, was super helpful. So I definitely appreciated that. So last DynamicsCon, Donna talked about the legacy formula and the 5 different questions on how to help somebody with technology. And so I was kind of the person that Joel kind of decided to take under his wing and kind of help me build my tech skills. And so, she talked a lot about being on the giving end of that. And so I wanted to just share a little bit about what it was like to be on the receiving end of that, those tech skills and developing that technology use and things like that. So it was really helpful for me to get this kind of information from Joel and have him be able to let me kind of grow on my own as far as seeing what I could do individually, but then also being there to help me kind of hone in on the specific skills that I wanted to learn, because I didn't want to learn everything because there's so many buttons and so many options. I found it really helpful that he was able to help me identify what skills I wanted to learn and then kind of walk me through that. And so then afterwards, we kind of talked about number 4, how can we help other people like me? And so I think he's going to probably touch on that a little bit in his section. And then number 5, I think this presentation and our video and the interview is a pretty non-annoying way to tell our story. So I think that's great. But yeah, it was super fun, and I had a great time being on the receiving end of this, and it's definitely inspired me to want to help others and kind of maybe, especially even on my team of therapists, to kind of pass along these skills and things like that. So that was definitely, it was an adventure, and we had some hills and valleys, but overall it was a really fun experience. So now that I do have these skills, what's next for me? How do we help people like me? I think what's important is to kind of, now that I have my skills, finding a way to communicate those and make those helpful in my current position. Whether it be trying to communicate progress or tracking purposes to my supervisor or the regional office. There's a number of ways that I can find ways to implement this, but it's not a clear-cut path because it's not identified as something that is a necessary skill for people in my field or in my office specifically. So that'll be kind of interesting. But as I mentioned previously, I also want to help other people learn if they want to and kind of develop their other skills so that we can be a good, well-rounded team. So those are just kind of some of the talking points that I had and wanted to review my experience and kind of go over the things that I learned and how it went. And I really appreciate this opportunity. It's been great. Thank you to Joel and DynamicsCon and for hosting and giving Joel and I the opportunity to brainstorm and have a really awesome time kind of honing in on my tech skills. So next up, we're going to hear from Joel on his experience on what it was like to teach me some new skills.
Thanks, Zoe. That was fantastic. Appreciate you sharing, and so many good insights to the process. I learned a lot at the same time, trying to, kind of pass along some knowledge to Zoe. For me, a lot of times I'm not, I'm teaching people who have already are kind of already in the Microsoft realm. And this was very different to kind of, be teaching somebody who's basically starting from zero and trying to, skill up somebody like that. It's just a different set of challenges than what I'm used to in my consulting role. So I want to talk today about how does this movie end, and who are some of the key players and what role are they going to play in this story, and so let's get into it. So first of all, in our movie, we need to decide on a plot, and I have a couple ideas. So I liked both of the DynamicsCon themes. Zoe talked a lot about skilling up. So I wanted to make my plot of the movie about this year's theme, or this spring DynamicsCon's theme of accessibility. And when I think about accessibility, I don't just think about persons with disabilities. I'm also thinking about accessibility more broadly. So how do we make technology accessible to everyone, including Mac users, including, people that are starting from zero? How do we make platforms that scale to all those people? So I think that's a good theme to go with. And then we need to decide on what role is everyone going to play in our movie. So I have some different players picked out from Microsoft, partners, employers, and of course you, and deciding what role we're all going to play in our Power BI story. So starting with Microsoft, we need to decide if they are going to be the hero of our story or possibly the antagonist of the story. So I think some of the things they've done definitely make them the hero of the story for someone like Zoe, in terms of they are giving away tools like Power BI Desktop for free. You can publish to powerbi.com to My Workspace for free. Even on some of the other Power platform like Power Apps, you can do a Power Apps environment for free. So they are giving away some free stuff, which I think is great in this cloud world we live in. Every software should have some ability for people to get in and kind of experience it for free. And Microsoft gives away a lot of the training for free, so that's readily available on docs.microsoft.com, where you can learn and take courses and do videos and walkthroughs of Power BI. And I think specifically I'll give kudos to the Power BI team. They're very active on their socials, on Twitter and Reddit. They're very active, very responsive. consistent bloggers. And I think that builds a good community for Power BI and helps bring more people into the fold. Okay, is Microsoft going to play the antagonist? So no login for you because right now for a lot of the online stuff, you have to have a work or school account. And if you're someone like Zoe who's not in the Microsoft ecosphere, that could be a big challenge, right? You can't just use a normal consumer Microsoft account to get into these things. You have to be signed up for Microsoft. And there's ways to do trials and sign up for free, but it gets super complicated, for an individual to get into it. So I think, not requiring a work or school account to get into these tools would be a big improvement. Of course, Zoe talked about using a Mac. I'll say, Power BI, I'll take it a little step further that you have to have a pretty powerful Windows computer, or Power BI tends to die on you, or slow everything down to a crawl. So I think, making it cross-platform, but also making it available on the web where everyone can use it, no matter what tools or technical tools they have. And Zoe mentioned the complexity. I think just making sure that it's as easy as possible. I think Power BI has gotten better at being easier for new users, but of course, that's something that can always be improved so that when you get in there, you kind of have a path to go down and to get started. So partners, which is me, I'm a practice manager for a partner. So are we going to be Q from James Bond or T-1000 from Terminator? In case you don't know who these characters are, Q is the guy who gives James Bond all his fancy gadgets, and T-1000 is the bad guy. So if the partners are going to be Q, then we're going to have the right tool at the right time, because sometimes in BI, we can just dump so much things on people and they're just lost, right? So can we give individuals just enough knowledge to keep going and keep progressing, and not just dump a bunch of stuff on them, dump a bunch of technology on them. I think a good partner is calm under pressure, especially when you're dealing with reporting. There can certainly be some frustrations trying to manipulate all that data and get it into the right format. And so, just having a calm demeanor is a positive thing for BI. So knowing all the things for a partner, okay, that's a little much, let's say, but knowing how to find out, what you need to know is a good skill. How can partners fall into the T-1000 from Terminator? Okay, well, if they're morphing into a bunch of personalities, that's something the T-1000 did. If they're always coming in and blowing up your world, you're just feeling like you're under attack, it's probably not a good sign from a partner. And then, I don't know, to me, maybe most importantly, be nice. That we're all learning, we're all at different stages. I think being patient and kind is so important from partners. So what about your employer? Is your employer going to be the trusted sidekick character in the movie, or are they going to be just an extra in the background? So if your employer is going to be your trusted sidekick, they need to know all of the available tools. So they need to be able to kind of guide and direct you in what tool you should be using, what tools you should be exploring, what tools the company's going to take on, and try to get their users excited about the possibilities of what they can do. If you're going to be a trusted sidekick, you need to give access to the data that people need to dig into Power BI, and not just make them go do a bunch of Excel manipulations, but can they get easier access to the tables of information so that they can mash them up and do transformations in Power BI and more quickly get to the report building. And of course, the trusted sidekick always buys time for the hero, right? So they're always creating a diversion or whatever. But to me, in this case, buying time means like, are you giving employees time to actually, work on this stuff in addition to what they normally do? Or is it always on the employee to, make time on Saturday or in the evenings to figure this out? So I think the trusted sidekick gives people time and encourages learning. Okay, if you're an extra in the movie, you're just in the background. So if your employer's just kind of in the background, not really doing anything good or bad, that's an extra, right? But that's not necessarily very helpful for progressing. So hopefully they're not playing the role of an extra in the movie. And, the other thing an extra doesn't do when you think about the plot of a movie is they don't connect people together, right? And so that's critically important is connecting either other employees maybe who are interested in Power BI, or connecting partners and consultants with your employee base that can help teach employees and help get them going on this new technology. Finally, are you going to play the part of the lone warrior? Or are you going to be one of the Avengers? So, when I think about the lone warrior, you spend time on the open road, traveling down a path with your trusted horse. So, are you going to be that lone warrior who's just spends all their time reading the docs and researching and doing self-learning? That could be your character. And I think any good Power BI person will tell you that probably Googling is their most popular resource, just searching for problems. I was working on a problem last week. I must have had 100 tabs open in Edge. I just kept searching and searching to try. I think I learned 20 new things, of which I actually needed 3 at the end of the day, but I had to just keep looking and looking and looking for the answers to do what I wanted to do. So I think that's kind of the lone warrior aspect of it, is kind of teaching yourself. And then the Avenger, right? So the Avengers are their strength in numbers. There's a whole series of people who are helping each other, who are collaborating. And, I think for an individual, it's finding sort of your Power BI tribe, whether that's user groups, conferences, social media, whatever or inside your company, consultants, whatever you can do to kind of have a circle around you. Because one of the things that's hard about Power BI is there's so many skills you have to have, right? You have to be able to pull data and manipulate data and do weird joins and, and model the data and create relationships. And then you have to be able to be a report writer and create beautiful visuals. And then you have to be able to know all the publishing workflow. And then you have to be able to, talk to the business about why this is going to help them with their process. Like there's all kinds of skills that you can develop, and nobody has all those, from day one, right? So you have to specialize in certain areas and then build your Avenger team around you that's going to help supplement the areas you're not as good at. And then finally, I think the Avengers, I'm probably mixing up comic stories and that's terrible for a nerd conference, but I think celebrating when you slay the dragon, like I did last week, because I was pounding my head against the wall 100 times. And that's one of the things you got to do at the Avengers is, everybody gathers around and gets the freeze frame shot at the end of the movie to show when they've succeeded in their mission. So hopefully gives you some ideas of how the plot of this movie could go. Hopefully you're excited about playing a part in the movie. Maybe you'll be the star of Query Minds 2. And with that, I am going to wrap it up. But first, I will bring Zoe back in.
Hello. Thank you.
So, yes, thank you. And I'm just going to throw up our information here as we wrap it up, Zoe. So this was great. This was so fun. And
Yes.
I don't know that I've ever co-presented or I don't think I ever have done like a back and forth type presentation online. So this is fun for me.
Yeah, it was a good learning experience. It was fun. The only group work I've done has been in school. So I appreciate having a partner that actually does the work, and then so there's equal work for both of us, and I'm not just carrying it. But
I'm with you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's my email, my LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there.
I forgot to put your TikTok up here. Sorry.
My TikTok, it's okay. But you can find me on TikTok.
So yeah, we're going to do the live Q&A, or if you're watching this on YouTube, next time come live. And
yes, please.
Have a great conference. If you're live, there's a happy hour after the live chat. So please stick around and join that. But with that, we will wrap it up and have a great week.
Have a great conference, guys. We'll see you in the chat.
Hello, everybody. Let me just answer. I got my cape on.
Nice.
I was like, you know what? If Donna's attending, I should put a cape on.
I was just jamming to the music.
Of course you were. Good sounds, man.
By the way, so when we recorded that, so this is the second playing of this session.
Yes.
And if you want to have a noon happy hour or a morning happy hour, no judgment here.
Nope.
That was originally for the 5 o'clock time slot.
Which,
we were giving the shout out for the happy hour.
Yeah. Or it could be a happy hour. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's 9 a.m. somewhere. That's what I always say.
Cheers, Jennifer.
So we got some good questions, mostly for you.
Yes. What can I say? They hear you talk enough, Joel.
So Zvika asked a good starter question in terms of, do you see Power BI being used by casual users in the same way that Excel is used by casual, like everybody? So how do you see those? How do you see it fitting in?
Potentially, I could see that where it becomes a little more casual, especially as it becomes more well-known and more, I don't want to say user-friendly, but I think as it becomes, this, theme of accessibility, I think as this becomes more accessible to people, and people have the tools to learn it themselves and, develop their skills or whatever, I could see it being used casually, especially as people want to learn these skills to, further their careers, or like me, just, for funsies. So I could see it, but I don't think at this point in time it's at that level of accessibility.
Yeah, we talked about it in the last Q&A where, because you were starting from zero, from a blank Power BI file, there's just a lot more stuff to learn as a new person. And one of the things I would encourage to people listening is the fact that a Power BI administrator can deploy a data model and you can just get started with writing reports. And I think that's a much more realistic way for new users, but
yes,
it's kind of hard if you're not part of an organization and they're not providing that for you. Like in your case, that's just not always feasible. So there's
Nope.
there's some
HIPAA.
friction there. Yeah, exactly. So there's some friction there that makes it tough. For casual people, the learning curve might be a lot. And
Yes.
keeping in line with the learning curve, Sean asks if there was one thing that you really felt like you needed my help with. And I guess there's two questions. One thing that was too hard, and maybe something, or that something that should have been easier.
Yes. P.S. Molly, yes, this is the inaugural conference, Cape. You're welcome. Also, I think the tip that I needed the most was when like we prefaced before, if we had data sets and I was just running reports, this would have been easier. So, but where I ran into trouble and I needed your help the most was when we tried to get some of that crosstalk between the data sets that we ended up finding, because I just couldn't make it work. And I was trying not to just sit and Google. I was trying to use intuition and also review some of the videos in our series that we had done to kind of see what I could come up with on my own, but then ultimately use, what I needed or the questions I had for our next session. But I think some of those, establishing those relationships between the data, because I didn't realize that they couldn't communicate just based on how the data was set up in the query. So that was I wouldn't have been able to figure that out on my own, because that's where that's different from Excel, I think.
Right. And one of the challenges Zoe's also talking about is that not only could she not didn't have the data model done, she also couldn't use data from work to learn Power BI because of privacy reasons. So what we ended up doing is there's a website called data.world that has some pre-done, they're not pre-done data models, but it's just data sets that you can connect to for free. And, that's a way to ingest well-formatted data into Power BI. So at least you can start playing around with it. So that was one of the things that we did to kind of shortcut it, because you were struggling at the beginning to just find some data to report off of.
Yeah, so I think another question was, because you had mentioned about being a lone warrior, and somebody had asked if that was more my style or if I did MS Learn sessions / watching YouTube. And I think I kind of touched on this. I was more trying to be a lone warrior, but also bounce ideas off of you, so that we could kind of develop this series and collaborate for this project specifically. So I guess I was a little bit of both, but I tried to avoid Googling, especially on Edge. I don't know what you were doing, but I tried to avoid that because I wanted just to see what I could come up with on my own.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that was part of the project was, you were a little bit of a lab rat in terms of, hey, what happens if I just set you in front of this program and say, go, how's that going to work out? And it was tough, right? I mean, that's not an easy, it's not an easy thing to do.
Right. Yes. John asked what my colleagues think about this or learning these skills or whatever. I think it's difficult, and you kind of touched on this in your part of the presentation. It's it's not that it's not valued by our employer, but for our position, it's not needed. So unless you're somebody like me who wants to grow and develop within the company kind of thing. So I think for them, it's just a difference in not necessarily personality, but like they know that I can do it. And so if they have questions about it or whatever, they would rather just come to me than kind of take on the skills, whereas I will just learn the skills and then, become the MVP in my office. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's, some of my discovery, I don't know if Donna's still here, but that some of my learnings through this was that, there was a challenge when like every part of what you were trying to do is sort of outside of the sphere of the people we're normally working with. So how do you, as a person, the only connection you have is me, right? To the Microsoft world and the data world and all that stuff, and you're completely outside. So how does someone like you get inside the circle? That's a challenge, and I don't know the answer at this. Maybe the chat can answer it, but I think it's just a tough challenge. But we need to make that possible, that someone who's completely outside the circle can get into it if they have the drive, have the desire to do it.
Yeah, I think if you have the drive and desire, yes, it can be done, which is helpful, especially when you have somebody to kind of guide you. Otherwise, I don't know how or when I would have had the opportunity to do this. What's great about this community that you have escorted me into is that you guys you're looking for people like me. And so, I've been graciously welcomed into this community and environment, and you guys have encouraged me, especially in the chat or, Twitter and my LinkedIn, y'all blowing me up. But it's been really encouraging to see everybody being responsive to this journey because you want to develop a skill up people like myself. And so I think this community is really supportive, and I'm grateful for this opportunity because it is, I'm making myself vulnerable. Well, both of us are, by being teacher and student, and then showing it, and then on YouTube, and then on a global conference scale. So I think it's been really great to have the kind of feedback that we have, and it's encouraged me to want to learn more. And if you need another guinea pig for another project, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and Zvika asks a related question, like he says, if someone who's a self-starter and is trying to self-study, could they level up into getting a paid job? And I think my answer to that would be, you can self-learn the tool if you have access to data and access to a Microsoft work account so that you can publish your reports and sort of learn the whole process. My answer is yes, you can do it. Even more so if you have an avenue to actually utilize the reports you're using, and they're not just like for practice and for fun, but they're actually, like helping a little department or helping a group, figure something out, then you'll get even more traction. So I definitely think it's possible if you have some of those things to start with. If you're just trying, if you're like, don't have data, your job doesn't care about it, and you don't have a Microsoft account, a work account, it's going to be tough to learn enough, to just go get a paid job. Maybe, or maybe you can look for a job where they'll teach you, but that's just going to be a tougher avenue, honestly. So doable, but hard.
Yeah, I think if you have, like you mentioned, if there is a set goal, because I think that was one of the things we also struggled with, was that, what am I going to do with this report when we're done? Like, it wasn't and that also kind of made it a little difficult as far as what tools I needed to learn for this specific project. Because if we had said, okay, by the end of this, we're going to have these visuals and that's the goal, then I would have known specifically what tools and skills I needed to develop. And so if you have that idea and you can kind of then build on, so you have a more comprehensive understanding of the program as a whole, I think it would be doable.
Right.
I could also get back to, because who knows, maybe I'll get a job offer, and then we'll say yes. Then the answer will be yes.
My friend Eric he used Power BI to like do his fantasy football draft. So there are some like personal fun projects where you're still using it in like for a purpose, you know, where you can learn a tool like this. Yeah. So if you have some data nerdery that you're interested in, it's possible.
Yes.
And I think the final question I'll throw out is, I think Jake asked a long time ago, Jake asked if you're still utilizing what you had built originally.
No.
As part of our project.
I mean, I am utilizing the skills for another project. So and I'm still continuing to develop that. So in that regard, yes, but the actual data that we used, no. So it's yes and no, I guess. Yeah. The skills, yes. The actual data and the thing, no. But good question.
You want to give us a hint about the new project?
I don't know if I can.
Oh, okay. Great.
but
we like top secret.
But yes, so it's exciting. We'll see where this goes. But I think that's awesome. All probably about time that we have today.
Yep.
But thank you so much to DynamicsCon for having us. This has been great. This community is awesome, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Also, probably the most I've ever seen Joel in a year. So that's been cool. Yes. Bear hug. So that's all for me.
Bye.
Bye.